Alicia of Night Owl Stories, and tonight I will narrate another story in my new Tales of the Shtetl collection. This one is called The Arendar's Despondent Dog and shows how spiritual advice might benefit our pets. So sit back, relax, and enjoy as I take you on a journey into the past. Meir was an Arendar, a farm manager for the large Russian farm that sprawled all around Cholentsk. Because of the draconian rules of the Pale of Settlement, which forbade Jews from living among the Russian population, the farm prevented Cholentsk from ever growing. The influx of Jews from Poland over time had turned Cholentsk into a chaotic, squalid anthill, rife with poverty and disease. The shul was small and rickety. There were only 2 Talmud Torah schools for children when the shtetl would have required at least 10. And what schools there were did not prepare anyone for a modern trade, let alone a career in science or the arts. There were elected officials, but no budget for the new marvels of road paving and sanitation. Meir the Arendar did not live in Cholentsk proper. He only had to put up with the smell of raw sewage from the outhouses and the impossibly muddy streets when he went into town on Shabbat to show his face in shul and socialize. As a perk of the job, he was given a small cabin at the farm that had a primitive running water system which made it possible to take cold showers. Meir would have been one of the cleanest and most pleasant-smelling men in the region had the farm itself not produced its own variety of ghastly smells which saturated his clothes. The few kilometers that separated his cabin from the town center might as well have been an abyss, for during the week, Meir worked too hard to make it into town and grab an ale or a glass of schnapps or 2. He was quite lonely until his colleague Piotr suggested he get a dog. A dog, he marveled. What would I do with a dog? For a Jew, you're quite the dunderhead, his colleague answered with a guffaw. What can't you do with a dog? The other man went on to explain how useful a dog could be around a farm and even at home. It was true, Meir realized. Other managers and farmhands had dogs and used them to keep the barnyard animals in line and the foxes out of the henhouse. Soon after that conversation, he adopted a puppy. He was frustrated at first with the helpless creature, but delighted by its cheery yelping and the obvious love it developed for him. Quickly, he found himself reciprocating the dog's affections and noticed a decided improvement in his mood. He named the dog Kelev, dog in Hebrew, which may not have been very imaginative, but at least could offend neither Jews nor Gentiles. Kelev was a smart and moderate dog in every respect. He was friendly with strangers, but not fawning. He explored his territory, but was wily enough not to get himself in trouble, and was a judicious barker, alerting his owner to the presence of suspicious strangers or undesirable animals, but keeping quiet otherwise. Meir heard stories from dog owners about their eccentric, vicious, or demanding pets and realized he had lucked out. "How do you like that, Kelev?" he'd say. "You're a gem. Such a good boy." Invariably, Kelev would wag his tail a few times, conservatively, as was his manner. When Meir had his down days or fell ill, the dog knew it and would come nuzzle him. On beautiful days, Kelev would plant himself before the door and encourage his owner to take a walking break. And when the weather was bad, the dog acquired his one and only quirk. He liked being read to. It didn't matter what the story was, as long as it involved animals. Kelev seemed to know the names of all the barnyard creatures, and when he recognized them, he would beat the floor with his tail. Meir took his dog everywhere, which earned him the derisive nickname of Houndmaster. When Kelev could not enter a building, he did not mind being tied up and patiently watched the passers-by and the rolling clouds, or sniffed into the dark of night. Meir was easy to get along with, and soon the goodwill towards him extended to his dog. The tavern owner allowed Kelev to sleep in a corner on cold nights, and the shamash of the shul took a liking to the animal and let him into his living quarters. This is not to say that Kelev became a fixture of Cholentsk by any means. Most children were terrified of him, and most parents stoked their fears by calling him a hellhound and a malicious beast. Christians had sicked their dogs on Jews for centuries, after all. Still, Kelev was tolerated, and in some rare cases liked, and this made Meir's life easier. When the dog turned 9, he started getting wobbly on his back legs. The first few months, this was a mere inconvenience, but in time, the dog's range and abilities were severely curtailed. No more could he trot far and wide into meadow and copse. No more could he chase after foxes or bark at an unruly sheep. Kelev, who had had the best disposition, fell into a canine funk, one that nothing could alleviate, not even a bedtime reading. "I know you're sad, Kelev, but we must endure what misery the Lord sends us," Meir would say. The dog would look up at him with long, suffering eyes, as if to answer, "I'm enduring it, but I don't have to like it." Meir asked Piotr what he should do. His colleague set a gentle hand on his shoulder and said, "You must put the creature down, Meir. It would be cruel not to." Meir recoiled in horror. "Put him down? I could never do such a thing." The man shook his head. "I hope you'll see reason, sooner than later, for your dog's sake." That night, Meir sat with his dog. "Do you wish to die, Kelev?" With great effort, the dog rose on his hind quarters, nuzzled him, and licked his hand, which he rarely did. Meir nearly cried. "I didn't think so, old friend. I didn't think so. Now we must find a way to make you happy again." That was easier said than done, and as Kelev's condition worsened, Meir ran out of ideas. Because his mood had plummeted and his faith was waning, he decided this was a spiritual matter and walked into town to see the rabbi. "If it isn't the Houndmaster," someone said as he marched by at this unusual hour. Today, the nickname rubbed him the wrong way. "Coming from a hound," he spat back. The Rebbitzin opened the door and saw that he was in quite a state. "Has something happened to Kelev?" she asked, perceptively. "Yes and no. I don't know what to do. May I speak with the rabbi?" The rabbi came to see him, forcing an expression of concern on his face. Unlike his wife, he was not among those who thought much of dogs. Meir explained the circumstances and begged the rabbi to come with him to see the dog. "Perhaps you'll notice something I haven't." "My dear Meir, I can't come all the way to the farm with you. I don't expect you to do this for free," Meir said, pushing a tidy sum into the rabbi's hand. Money was tight, and stifling a sigh, the rabbi said, "I will return your money if I can't do anything for you." "No, this is for you to keep. If you can help, I'll give you more." And so they walked to Meir's cabin, barely exchanging a word as they made their way, two black silhouettes against a dreary backdrop. It was a cold day that stung the nose and cheeks, but both men were lost in thought. Meir in worry over his dog, and the rabbi in endless recrimination against Meir's foolishness. When they arrived, the dog rose to greet his owner and sniffed the rabbi, who stepped back in alarm. "He's harmless," Meir said. The rabbi frowned. "So you say." Meir served his guests some tea, and the rabbi relaxed, but kept a wary eye on the dog. He observed the Spartan surroundings and realized Meir had very little in life, besides his work and his dog. His gaze softened, and Kelev came to rest his head in his lap. The rabbi was thoroughly mollified by the friendly gesture, and then astonished at how quickly the dog had won him over. How had the creature done that without a word? How could a beast be so likable? "Tell me again what you use him for," the rabbi asked, and Meir went over the list of Kelev's habitual tasks before his illness. The rabbi pondered this, looking at Meir, then at the dog, and petting him for minutes on end. Finally he said, "Find a way to get yourself and the dog to the lake tomorrow at sunset. When you're there, you must wait for an hour, then return home." "How will I get there? And who will take me back? Kelev can't walk that far." "Find a way," the rabbi reiterated. The next day, Meir started and finished the day early and paid a farmhand to take him to the lake in an old beat-up cart and to wait for him there. "The lake? What are you going there for?" the farmhand asked. "It's a wild place." A smile spread across Meir's face. Yes, that must be why the rabbi recommended this outing. So that Kelev could see the places he can't get himself to anymore, Meir thought. "I could use some of the money I've saved to take him out every other day." The cart shuddered through the countryside, and Meir did his best to shelter his dog from the bumpy ride. Kelev sniffed the air happily, and Meir lauded the rabbi's wisdom. When they arrived at the lake, Meir carried his dog to shore, and they sat under a stand of slender birches. The lake had frozen over, except for its edges, As the sun sank towards the horizon, the colors of the world grew more saturated, dark blues and greens and russets. The quiet was interrupted by a bird's cry or the rustling of leaves in the wind. Now, there were some cracking sounds in the underbrush, and a group of does and their fawns slowly came to the edge of the lake to drink, not 100 yards away. Caleb propped himself up to make them out, and the does swiveled their heads in unison, only to discount Meir and Caleb's presence as harmless. "How the mighty have fallen," Meir whispered as he patted his dog's head. After the deer left, the quiet resumed. The sky was on fire, and the surroundings began to darken. "Perhaps we can go now," Meir thought, but something told him to stay put just a little longer. Suddenly, there were grunts and sounds of branches snapping nearby. A yearling bear came into view, whining and anxious to get to the lake's edge. Meir was frozen, wondering what to do, but Caleb experienced no such hesitation. To Meir's astonishment, the dog mustered the energy to bound free of his grasp and meet the small bear head on. The bear grunted at the wobbly dog and considered attacking it. "Caleb, come back right this minute," Meir cried. But the dog ignored him and stood squarely between the bear and his owner. He growled and barked and barked and growled, putting on a show of great ferocity despite his trembling hind legs. The bear decided the spot was not worth the trouble and trotted off. Only then did Caleb return to his owner's side, and Meir swore he could see an expression of intense pride in his beloved dog's eyes. After the lake incident, the dog's good spirits returned. He died a few days later after falling into a ditch he was unable to crawl out of. Meir always wondered how the rabbi had known.